Hello, Peregrune runners. Today I sat down, I spoke with Christian Allen. Christian lives and trains in Orem, Utah, and he is on the verge of becoming a professional runner in road and trail racing. He is a two-time All-American in cross country, attending both Weber State and Brigham Young University. And he's had a busy racing year. Domestically, he has done the Snowbird and the Alta Cirque, which are traverses around two of the famous mountains in Utah. He did the Pikes Peak Ascent, which I think must be the most brutal race in the domestic United States. Internationally, he's done two big races. He represented Team USA at Challenge Stellina, and he went to the Canary Islands as part of the World Mountain Running Association to do the race out there. Christian is a husband, he's a dad, he's a devout member of his community, and recently he was appointed general manager of the Runner's Corner specialty store in Utah, and that particular store was voted a best running store for 2023. I hope you all enjoy. We explore a lot in this wide ranging conversation, including the importance of persistence, focus, and why giving anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift that you'd have. Good afternoon, Christian. It is great to see you. I am thrilled to be speaking with you, and I'm glad to have you for a few minutes today.
Yeah, thank you, George. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, maybe to start, I thought this would be a fun question to ask. We've been trying to nail down this interview for a little bit, and you have been a busy man. So I would love to ask, how many stamps have you got in your passport due to running over the last couple years?
Oh, this has actually been my rookie year. I just finished up at college a little bit and I didn't have my cross country eligibility this year. I'm still debating on coming back for indoor and outdoor track, which is kind of what I'm leaning towards. But that's kind of the plan. But with not having the cross country eligibility, it allowed me to kind of get on the international trail circuit, and I got to travel over to Italy and then Spain, Gran Canaria, the Canary Islands. So just 2 times for me this year, but it was fantastic and I absolutely loved it.
Awesome. That's really cool. Well, then maybe the next question is just taking a step back. Can you tell us more about kind of yourself? What do you do for live, work, and play? And then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Right now I'm currently the general manager at a little local running store here in Orem, Utah. So that's what I do when I'm not running. I'm just kind of involved in running, but I'm kind of running right now a lot, trying to see what I can do on the international and this professional circuit and kind of putting my name out there. And then this winter, I'll be doing the CIM marathon here in about 5 weeks. But then after that, I'll kind of start getting ready for indoor and outdoor track is the plan. And then I hope to sign a professional contract towards the end of outdoor season, unless for some reason something made sense before then.
Awesome. When did you start running? When did running do you remember when you first had your first run, I guess is the question?
Yeah, I do actually, ironically. I think I was in the 7th grade going into 8th grade, 7th to 8th grade summer or something along those lines. And I had a friend that had a brother that was running on the high school cross country team. And he just said, hey, my mom said she'll make us pancakes or waffles or French toast, something along those lines if we go to cross country. And I grew up playing soccer and baseball my whole life, and I played a little basketball and a little football, but mostly soccer and baseball. And so I really wasn't too interested in running, but I figured, I'll run to condition for soccer, which was my main love at the time. And I said, okay, like it's early, cross country starts at 7. And for a middle schooler or high schooler that didn't have much interest, that didn't seem all that fun in the summertime when I could stay out late and just wake up whenever. But he convinced me and I showed up, and I know I'm a pretty competitive kid. I think I excelled in sports for the most part just due to my competitive drive and wanting to compete. And I showed up that day and I ran with the top guy at the high school that year, and they finished like, where did you finish? I was like, oh, I was just running up with Hunter. And they're like, are you kidding me? Like Hunter? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just kind of part of me. I just went out there and I like running or competing with whoever's the best out there. I put myself out there, and I mean, I fell a lot at different things, but I guess running just took off. So it was fun. And then we went back to their house and ate French toast and like, you should do running. And I was like, I prefer to just do soccer. But that was my first experience.
That sounds like the perfect, it's funny. If you had asked me that question, I would have told you a similar story. It was joining a cross-country team in high school, joining our school's cross-country team. But my experience about being towards the front was not nearly like that. I remember coming home and my calves were tight and I was running them under the hot water. My follow-up question was going to be, when did you realize you were fast? But it sounds like you realized you were fast pretty quickly.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily thought I was like fast. I just thought, oh, I can run with anyone, and Hunter Weinz actually ended up being a really good runner and competed well at state in his following years as he got older in high school. But I really kind of neglected and pushed off running for as long as I could until soccer just didn't quite work out, and I finally fully transitioned my junior year. But I didn't run cross country my freshman year, but I did run my track gear. And the first time I ran a mile, like I thought I was fairly competitive for a freshman at altitude. And I think that's probably when I realized like, oh, maybe I have an opportunity at this. So,
yeah, what's interesting is there seems to be this common theme. Like a lot of times you hear that the runners that grew up in Africa, they've been running their whole lives, they're training, and, Americans have no chance. But what I think is interesting is there's almost like this disguise where a lot of American kids grow up playing soccer. I know for my boys that are 6 and 8, soccer is like the thing that's just like the thing that people love to do. And it's like a subtle amount there's a lot of aerobic conditioning, which is happening often throughout the week while playing a game of soccer. And I mean, there's been a lot of great American distance runners who grew up playing soccer. And I wonder if it started early, like there's this nice aerobic base. And then when you start running, you're taking advantage of all that, but you've been running for a long time.
Oh yeah. I think a big key of running, especially as I'm running a lot higher mileage and doing more strenuous training, is just keeping it fun and making sure you're not getting burnt out. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head right there, just in the sense that Americans, we may not start out as running at a young age as often as maybe Africans or other countries, but I think it keeps that kind of fun lightness of running, and people don't really realize that they're running and starting that development of their running careers until, they really transition over. But I think it allowed me not to feel burnout because I've been doing running now at a fairly competitive level for about 10 years now. And I feel like had I been doing it for a lot longer, maybe I'd be burnout by this point. I don't know. You never know. But yeah, I think it's just good to make sure you keep it light at times and have those fun days.
Yeah, definitely. So you started running in 7th grade, and then it sounds like you continued running in high school, and then at some point you decided to run collegiately. What sort of drove that decision? What did that process look like? And tell me more about your college journey.
Yeah, I ran a couple times over the summer in 7th and 8th grade, but not a ton. And then I really kind of started my 9th grade year. First year I was eligible to run at the high school. And I really thought I just had a good chance at soccer. I was on a fairly competitive competition team in my state. And I really just wanted to kind of keep pursuing that. But then eventually I kind of put all the marbles into the basket of running once I realized I was able to qualify for state and place fairly well my freshman sophomore year, and then really kind of focused in on my junior year, and it went pretty well. And then I had a lot of letters kind of reaching out to me over my freshman sophomore year, just letters of inquiry kind of thing like that. And then yeah, I don't know, I just kind of started reaching out to colleges, and I was like, hey, like this could pay for my college and could be a great opportunity, and I'd love to just see how far I could take it. So
yeah, definitely. And so you ran at I believe Weber State first, is that right?
Yeah, Weber State. But yes, you're
So
good.
we're in
I
the
hear
South.
that all the time. Whenever
We don't pronounce
that's probably the
anything
more
right.
correct way to say it.
Yeah. There's I have a funny story. I grew up in a county in Georgia called Houston County, but it's spelled Houston. And when my sister first went to Space Camp in Alabama, That was like a big trip that we used to like to go do. And she was on one of those mission control teams. And one of her lines was she had to say something like, Houston, say, Houston, are you there? And she said Houston, and everybody laughed, and she was scarred for life. So I think that's funny.
Yeah,
And
no,
did you
we
run
got that a
there?
lot when we traveled.
Mm. Did you run there for 4 years, or did you transfer after a couple years?
Yeah, I ran there for 4 years along with my wife. She ran there at Weber State, but once she graduated and finished with her eligibility, I'd finished 4 years, and then I started kind of looking at some grad programs, and I ended up transferring to BYU, which was in state, just about an hour and a half or so away from Weber. And financially, it just kind of made sense for our situation. We had our first kid, and we were expecting our second at that time, so we moved down here. And the store I'm actually a general manager at is a family-owned running business, so it's my in-laws store, and so it just kind of made sense for me to slot in there, work a little bit more, save up some money, and prepare for a second kid, and then start a program here at BYU.
Sounds great. And then at some point along there, you decided to give trail racing a shot, and then even eventually the international circuit. What motivated you to go from, the cross country world, the track world, the road world, to give trail running a try?
Yeah, Weber State, I absolutely loved my time there. It was just a phenomenal experience. I had an amazing coach in Corbin Talley. And one advantage we had there is we could get to the trails within a quarter mile or something like that. So we ran the trails pretty much every day to some extent, whether it was a little bit or a lot of our runs. And I just really grew to love the trails, and I think the trails helped me stay healthier as I started to develop and get higher mileage as I got into my junior and senior year and stuff of that. And I just found kind of a new love for it. I mean, I love to push myself over the summers. I actually trained on my own a lot over the summers. I'd move kind of back home, which isn't too far from Weber State, about an hour. I'd move to where my wife's family was, an hour and a half, but I did pretty much all my summer training on my own. And one way I found of just kind of staying in shape and having a benchmark was pushing for FKTs, or just pushing for segments up mountains and seeing how fast I could run up it. And I grew to really enjoy and love that kind of power run, kind of tempo burn feel that you have on the way up, and felt like it was a great way to get some threshold volume training with low impact, and then I could just kind of chill on the way down. So
Yeah. There seems to be this common theme of kind of the love for playing games and sport, which has probably giving you a lot of longevity in terms of running, because it's not so much work. It's more like you're playing, is what I hear.
oh, for sure. Yeah, I feel like trail running definitely takes away the monotony of running at times, like whether it's just road miles or track miles or stuff like that. So I just love to mix it up, and I think it's definitely where my heart is a little bit more, on those trail circuits.
There's a photo on your Instagram feed where you're sitting in a wheelchair. You're completely exhausted. I'd love to hear more about kind of that picture and what led up to that picture.
Yeah, so I finished my track season the very tail end of May this last year, and I really wanted to kind of stretch myself and see what I could do on the trails this year. So I had races from VKs, which are 2 miles, all the way up to, I wanted to try a 50K, which was the Speedgoat 50K here in Utah, up Little Cottonwood Canyon. And so that race, I got a lot of different insights or suggestions not to go out too hard or to do this or that. And I feel like I've been pretty fast on the trail. So I think a lot of people knew, like, hey, like once you get in these longer ones, you definitely need to kind of tone it down a little bit and be a little more tactical about it. And I didn't think I went over my head, but I started the race, and within like a mile and a half, I started pulling away from the pack, and I just kind of looked back and was like, oh, what's going on? I don't feel like I'm going all that hard. And it was pretty controlled, I felt like, compared to some of my higher intensity, shorter trail races. But I developed a pretty big lead by the time I'd hit the first peak there at Hidden Valley, and I was feeling great. That was about in mile 9, and then I went down to AF Canyon, and I took a little spill or fall around mile 18 or 19, I think. And when I got up, it just like took it out of my legs for some reason. And I mean, I felt pretty good up until that point. I didn't feel like I was going over my head, but I just got up and my legs felt a lot heavier, and I just kind of kept plugging along. And I led from the start to the finish, but my lead was definitely like up, down, depending on where I was at. Just as I hit the bonks that you do when you start to do your first longer race. But I think by the end of the race, I was just so sick and tired of having liquid fuel or gel fuel or not real substance. So by the time I'd hit the bottom, I was pretty gassed. I remember I was going into the last aid station, and I was definitely deep in the pain cave. And I passed a guy who soaked me up with some water and just filled up my water bottle as I was running through. And I said, how much farther to the finish? And the guy's like, oh, like 4 miles. And I think he could tell I was in a lot of pain. And so it's like, oh, just like 4 miles. And I started down, and on my way down, I started the descent. I was like, oh no, like that guy had to be full of crap, because like it took 9 miles to get up to here. Like best case, if we shave off a little bit, I got like 7 more miles. And I didn't realize that till like a mile down. I was just hurting pretty bad. But I just thought, hey, if I can click off 6-minute miles, I got a big enough lead that it's unlikely the guy behind me will be bombing 5-minute miles at this point, this late in the race. But so I just held on, and yeah, by the time I got to the finish, I was pretty gassed.
Wow. Would that be your favorite running memory, or is there a different memory you would say as your favorite?
Oh, I think my favorite memory that just catapulted me into, I feel like, more of an elite runner was the first time I was an All-American in cross country. It was just a really special experience leading up to that. I had knee surgery in the summer leading up to it, and long story short, my knee surgery ended up busting back open, and it got infected, so they had to redo the surgery, and it pushed me back a little farther, and I had a PICC line going through my arm straight to my heart that they had to monitor for like MRSA. They put me on a really high antibiotic, and so it was kind of a longer setback than expected. And I didn't really start running that summer until June. And that was actually when I was getting married. So there was just a lot going on. I got surgery, and then I got married, and then I started having really good training, feeling good, building up, and then had some hip issues. And long story short, I had a torn labrum, and I ended up trying all kinds of stuff, and it kind of hindered my running right as the season started in August. And I didn't really start running again until October, and nationals is in November. But I ended up getting a PRP injection. I convinced the doctors to try that, and I took a little bit of time off, way less than that's normally recommended for PRP injections. But I had some goals that I'd set earlier in the summer, and I knew that with just envisioning and goals and accountability, that you can reach a lot higher than it expected. And when I got injured, I was just working my butt off cross training because I still had these goals. I knew that who knew if I'd be able to run this season or if I'd have the redshirt or not, but I still wanted to make sure I was accountable to those. And it was just a cool story. I had a lot of goals on places I wanted to finish, and it started with high placing at conference, then regionals and nationals. And conference, I just came up a little short, but it showed me that even with cross training and working really hard, I was able to get really close to that. And then regionals, I was able to hit the goal I'd set. And then nationals, I was able to hit that goal as well. I want to finish top 21, and I finished 14th at nationals. And it was just a fun day because I had one other teammate that qualified individually, Dylan Taylor, and we went with our coach, Corbin Talley, and it was in Terre Haute, Indiana, and it was just pouring rain, and it was just a gritty, fun, it was like 30 degrees and pouring, and I don't know, it was just a super fun memory. That trip was fantastic, and something I look back on just very special to me. And just the journey of getting there, I think is just
Right.
It was amazing.
I mean, what a story, right? The journey, the hard work you put into it. I have to ask because I think it's very impressive, this level of accountability that you have to achieving your goals that you mentioned about. What do you do to keep yourself accountable? That's something that I think a lot of people could benefit from getting better at, and hearing from kind of how do you approach it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've learned is I unfortunately can't remember the statistics right off my head, but people that set goals are like something like 6 times more likely to achieve something than people that don't set goals. And then people that like actually write those goals down and make them known to people are even more successful at achieving that. And when I saw that, I just really realized that like that's something I want to do. And I really look up to Billy Mills and his story of just believing in himself. So I went around my house and I put up I duct taped certain things to walls of like best kick in the NCAA, or you can hang with anyone, or future All-American, or stuff like that, and really just ingrained that in my mind that I was an All-American. I hadn't made it yet, but I could do it. And then I made those goals. I vocalized those goals. I made them sure that other people knew. My wife knew, my coach knew, my teammates knew, my family knew. Because it's really easy when you hit those road bumps or those just blocks in the road of succeeding to that goal, just throw in the towel and say, I didn't really have that goal, you know?
Yeah.
But if you vocalize those goals and have someone that's there to keep you accountable, it just kept me motivated and kept me working hard even when I had those injuries and I had to cross train. Oftentimes I feel like in the past, if I hadn't done something like that, I'd be like, cross training, I'm not going to make it. But I've learned that you can really work hard and supplement that training, and it can do just as well if you're motivated and you have that goal to keep you accountable.
Wow. Well said. Thanks for sharing. I think that's right. That makes a lot of sense. And it's scary sometimes to write down your goal. It's even scarier to tell somebody else what your goal is. But I can see how that creates this community of accountability around you. So that makes a lot of sense. Well, speaking of having people around you, I think what's so interesting about your story and the success you're having is that you got a lot of things going on. You're not just a runner. You are, until very recently, you were also a student in university. You have 2 young kids at the house. You are married, so you're a husband, and you're also involved in your community. How do you balance, excuse me, how do you balance it all and still run at a elite level?
Yeah, it definitely gets tricky at times, but we've always just kind of ran with the ball and kept it rolling. I feel like I think the important thing is just having a important and just good support group. I feel like my wife's been phenomenal at helping me reach my goals, and she competing at a high level, being a multiple time All-American, and coming from a family that has multiple time All-Americans that have ran really well. She's been extremely supportive, been my rock in helping me, and we've worked together. Having a honeymoon baby a little sooner than we expected, we had to work together our last year at running collegiately with balancing a kid and going to school and both running at the same time. But we were both able to be All-American at the same time. We realized like, hey, like it's doable if you just, set your priorities and make sure that you're on top of things, like you can achieve anything. And so that was super cool to see. And we just kind of built off that. I mean, I feel like we were kind of thrown into the fire a little earlier than expected with our baby and just kind of stuff like that. But having a supportive family and a supportive wife and coaches and teammates and just all the trainers and other people that are able to help you and communicating your goals, like everyone wants you to succeed around you. And I've just been around some very amazing people that have helped supported me and reached those goals and made sacrifices to help me balance certain things.
Wow. Well said. Well, hey, last question for you. Here's a fun one that I love to ask. If you could put anything on a bumper sticker, any phrase of yours on a bumper sticker that would prominently go on the back of a car, what would you want to be on that custom bumper sticker?
Oh boy, you might caught me off guard there. That's a great question. I don't know if it's original, but I've always kind of said to sacrifice, give anything less than the best is to sacrifice the gift of success. So I just feel like just giving it your all and working, and you never know what can happen. So I've always kind of taken that to heart, and I don't want to give anything less than my best to sacrifice that gift. And I'd like to see how far I can go. So I think that's one thing that's always kept me honest and working hard about things.
Christian Allen, giving his best. I love it. Thank you for your time today.
Hey, thank you, George. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Awesome.